You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 66 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewart, and even without a voice, I am with the very inquisitive Jeff Gargis.
Inquisitive? Wow, where did that come from?
Well, you got inquisitive because I'm sure you remember episode 15 with Meryl Brown, who was the music therapist.
Yeah, Meryl, that was an awesome episode, yes.
You know, Jeff, I'm sure you don't remember this, but in episode 50, you gave her a shout out as a great episode.
Well, it was a great episode.
It made her year. She was so honored that you loved her episode 15. So if you haven't listened to that one, that's a great one. But she sent in inquisitive for you.
So Meryl listens, huh?
She listens, yes.
Well, awesome. Well, Meryl, thank you. That really was an awesome episode. I remember that episode. I love it. And if you haven't listened to episode 15, you definitely need to go back and listen to it. It's very cool.
I had no idea what a music therapist was going to bring to the show, and she was outstanding. So how are you, Jeff? You doing okay?
I'm great. I feel bad that you don't feel great with your voice. Although I know you're not feeling bad, but your voice just sounds like it's hurting, and I miss your normal Ray voice, you know. But all in all, I'm doing awesome. We're having a great night of podcast recording here, and this episode was fantastic. So I'm feeling very inquisitive and just excited.
Well, just imagine, the next time we record next week, I'll be 9 octaves higher. It'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic.
You know, Jeff, earlier today we talked about something that wasn't in the podcast, but I think it would be really valuable for us to kind of add it to our intro. So The question I had for you was if you wouldn't mind talking about your new morning routine that you were telling me about.
Yeah, so actually, it's funny to bring it up because actually, our guest Kelly Croy actually mentioned a piece of it, and that's journaling. So I want to mention, so I recently switched. I've been struggling, so I'll try and do short. I don't do short well, but back this last August, I made some changes. Started getting up at 5 in the morning, getting a workout in. I started running. I lost weight, feeling better, healthier than I've been in a long time. But I got injured in December, took 6 weeks off, and I still was working out, but I wasn't running. I lost a lot of stuff, lost a lot of my wind, but my mental game really, I lost it. I don't know why. It just kind of went away, which is 90% of all that. So I've been struggling for the last month and a half or so just with my consistency of getting up and getting my workouts in. Most time, if I don't, I at least get it in the afternoon, but I'm not getting that morning thing, and I missed that, and so I was just reading things and getting ideas and stuff, and I just got myself into a more strict routine now recently that I'm excited about, and I'm glad because I want to share it. I've been sharing it with people, and it's a sort of I guess a 5-step thing. So my mornings, the way I'm starting them now, is the first thing I do right when I get up is drink a full glass of water. And this is from it's a whole bunch of science out there and stuff that says that's the best way to start your body. Don't start with coffee, don't start with food, start with a nice glass of water. Some people do lemon water. I just do straight water. So I get up, I do a 10 or 12 ounce cup. And then while I'm doing that, I actually do a breathing exercise because there's some science behind when you wake up and change your breathing strategically, it actually resets your body and wakes your body up in a different way. So I do a very long, deep breath in through my nose, and then I hold it. And then I push it out with sort of my lips pursed together and really pushing from my diaphragm feel. And it's really, really focused on your breathing. And I do that for about 15 reps of doing that. Then I take some time and I stretch. Now, I'm usually doing stretches anyways because I'm getting ready to work out. But if you don't do a workout, you should just do a stretch. So stretch your legs, stretch your arms, stretch your back, do whatever you need to do. I do some work with a band. And then I take time after that to give thanks and be grateful. And then I also visualize my day and what it's going to be. And so I do those last two pieces. That's where Kelly's mention of journaling comes in, because I've mentioned this on a bunch of different episodes of our podcast, the 5-minute journal app that I use. So in the mornings, the way I give thanks is the first part things that it asks you to do is list the three things that you're grateful for, and then you do. So I list what I'm grateful for, and ask you to do your affirmations, which is sort of a part of giving thanks and visualizing. But then I also ask you what would make today awesome. So that's where I take the time to sort of give thanks, make sure I just get my mind clear and remember the things that I'm grateful for, and then also visualize what's going to make today awesome. So I've been doing it for about a week now, and it's helped. It's been fantastic, and I wanted to. I'm trying to share with people because it's really helping me a lot. So, it's water, breathing, stretching, giving thanks, and visualizing your day. 5 parts, and you could do it all honestly within about 10-15 minutes of getting up if you want to.
I'm more relaxed just having you talk through it.
It's honestly the glass of water and the breathing were massive. Because just doing focusing in the morning on that breathing really just has been crazy for me. Because a lot of times when I get up, I'm a little bit anxious because I'm trying to get my workout in, but I'm also thinking of all the things that I need to do for the day, and I just my mind gets going. And just taking that time to breathe for a little bit is just crazy how much that has done for me mentally. So
I do have to say, Jeff, while in all seriousness, the routine sounds fabulous, I do also want to thank you for breathing because I need you around for a little bit longer.
Well, it's a very strategic breathing. I'm typically breathing, but
No, it's awesome.
So, yeah, that was a great tie. It actually ties into it because there is a part later on in the episode where Kelly actually mentions journaling. So, speaking of Kelly, we've got, this is a longtime veteran teacher, 28 years that he's been teaching. He's touched a wide variety of subjects, but is currently the director of innovation and instruction. Actually here in Ohio, up in Port Clinton. And first thing about that is how passionately he talks about both the job that he had for 26 years and now the job that he's had for the last couple, and how much he loved both of them. It's just makes you happy listening to. But Kelly's also you may know him as the host of the Wired Educator Podcast. He's also the host of a newer podcast that he's got going, which is the Future Focus Podcast. And you may know him as an author, a highly acclaimed book called Along Came a Leader. And just a super fun guy, extremely knowledgeable, passionate, and I thought was just easy to talk to and have a conversation with. And I've been connected with him for a little bit on Voxer, and when we finally got him on the podcast, and I was not disappointed at all. Ray, what did you take away most from our conversations with Kelly?
Okay, first I want to say I'm a complete loser, but he had the perfect podcasting voice. He talked, he's a big talker, which makes sense, but with incredible value, and he knows the artistic way of speaking that just keeps you completely immersed in whatever he's talking about. So outside of his amazing value, I just want to add in that his voice was gold on this podcast. Unlike mine, which apparently sounds awful. I was going to say that's awful. That was completely a side note. But the other element I thought that he brought in was just the incredible value of connections. He approached it in a few different ways, and he had great advice throughout the entire podcast. I think sometimes we get people sharing a story, and then at the end they share a great tidbit of advice. But he just had advice after advice. There's so many takeaways from this podcast. It's a little bit longer than usual, but it had to be because there was no way that we were going to end without him spilling his whole heart on the table.
Yeah, and he absolutely did, and it's fantastic, and I think you are absolutely going to love this episode. So with that, let's get into episode number 66 with Kelly Croy. All right, so we are talking to Kelly Croy, and Kelly, I am super pumped to have you on this podcast. You and I have been connected on Voxer for a little while now in a group about podcasting and education, and it's been a super fun time just kind of getting to know you, exploring the podcast. And we were just talking for a while before we hit record now, and I didn't realize that you were in Ohio, so super excited about that, and just talking to you about a lot of different things you have going on. So first and foremost, just really, really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us, have some fun with us already, and we're going to have fun this whole episode. I got to ask, man, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. It's excited to be on your podcast with you and Ray. Usually I'm doing the interviewing, and I'm always trying to schedule how I'm going to get to the next question and stuff. So I'm just kind of kicking back tonight and see what you guys are going to throw at me. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, it's going to be awesome, Kelly. It's been amazing learning about you, learning from you. I know you're going to have so much insight to share, but the first question's really easy, and that's just for our listeners to get to know you. So would you mind sharing with us what you do so that we can kind of get that full picture of your story?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to be 50 years old this summer. I spent 26 years as a 7th grade English teacher at Oak Harbor Middle School in Oak Harbor, Ohio. I'm so proud of those years as an English teacher. It was the greatest job in the world until I was offered 2 years ago a job as the Director of Innovation and Instruction at Port Clinton City School District, which is just 11 miles away from my former district. Now got the greatest job in the world. And so it's a really cool title, Director of Innovation and Instruction. Basically, I'm in charge of what we learn, how we learn it, and all new initiatives. So as you can imagine, I wear a lot of different hats. I'm really proud of the leadership training that I'm doing in our district, working with principals and our other admin teams. But I also still get to have a lot of fun. I get to work with students from time to time on the coolest projects imaginable, robots and STEM projects, makerspace. We started a couple podcasts, book publishing, things like that. And so it's like took everything of my former job that I loved, that was really cool, and now I just do that. So it's great. But thank you for asking. I love education. Teachers are my favorite species. I'm so happy. I hope I can go 28 more.
Loving it, man. You got a lot going on. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff you have going on. So I knew when I first met you, the first thing I knew about you was the Wired Educator Podcast, which is a phenomenal podcast. So I want to have you talk a little bit about that, but then also you have the Future Focus Podcast as well. And I don't know, maybe there's some other podcasts that I'm not aware of. I'll let you touch into that. So let's do that first. Then I want to talk about your books too. But can you tell us about the Wired Educator Podcast, and then tell us what the Future Focus Podcast is about? Tell us about both your podcasts, and are there other ones that I'm not aware of yet?
No, great. So I'm really, really proud of the Wired Educator Podcast. And let me tell you why I'm really proud of it. I get to interview amazing educators from all over the world and share and promote their stories and great works with everybody. And it's just when you're celebrating and promoting the work of other people, it's a good feeling, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty easy podcast for me. The hardest part is getting those interviews scheduled. And so I'm anxious to learn from you and Ray about how I can have better systems doing that. I'm a one-man show. I do everything from the recording to publishing to the artwork, everything like that, all by myself. And it's really a passion project. I love it. It's really easy. I've learned how to do a great podcast with the Wired Educator Podcast. Just let the other person talk, right? So that's my secret. I come up with, I think, are pretty good questions. But I think really for me, I have a long format. So if, I hope your listeners do zip over to the Wired Educator Podcast and check it out. It's a long format, though. I'm going to warn you. We're a good 45, 50-minute podcast. And I've had some people suggest maybe I should shorten it down. I'm not. One thing God's blessed me with is I'm a great conversationalist. And so I just have a great conversation. It's kind of like eavesdropping in on two educators talking about, the what ifs and the hows and the whys. And I really like promoting other people. That's the Wired Educator Podcast. I'm about 130 episodes strong. I got more lined up. It's just a lot of fun. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the week is that interview. And it's just a lot of fun. The Future Focus Podcast I just call it a beta project. It's an experiment. I have another site. So wirededucator.com is where, people should go to learn more about my podcast and work there. But kellycroy.com is all about my speaking and artwork. And I've been speaking professionally for quite a long time. And so schools use me, businesses use me, corporations use me. I'm a nice opening day speaker for students and staff. I do bullying presentations, things like that. And about a year ago, I decided to start a podcast. I just wanted to do a short format. So the Future Focus Podcast is just me. It's a much harder podcast to do when you're not interviewing somebody else. And I don't I'm not an editor. I don't edit my podcasts, and so I don't really practice them. It's raw, but I think it's pretty good. It's how you would hear me from the stage. It's my passion. It's my enthusiasm about topics, about leadership, about culture, about living your best life, about overcoming obstacles. I don't shy away from motivation or inspiration. I embrace it. That's who I am. I coached football for 19 years, track for 10, wrestling for 10. I believe in inspiration. I believe in motivation. I believe you can talk to somebody and make them stand an inch taller. I believe you can talk someone through a problem. I think you can be coached. These are the things I believe in. And when I started education, I just assumed everybody got that message from their parents. And it was about the second day of school, I realized, that's not happening. And so I became that for my students. I was their coach. I was their mentor. I was their inspiration. And I taught the content of English and language arts. And after quite a few years in the classroom, I decided to write a book. Along came a leader to kind of for my students and for their parents and other people I knew that weren't learning the things about leadership that I just assumed everybody knew. And so I was really proud of that book. And so the Future Focus podcast is kind of an extension from that. I will say this, Jeff and Ray, everything that I do is truly an extension from my classroom. When I do record a podcast, when I do a presentation on stage, when I do something for Instagram or Facebook, it's just like teaching to me. It's exactly the same things that you would have heard me say in the classroom. And it's just kind of a larger classroom, if you would. So I'm really proud of all that I do. I think I'll continue doing the Future Focus podcast, but like I said, it's a lot harder. I just wanted to try it. I wanted to try a single voice format. So that's my answer. Yeah, that was kind of long.
No, I love it. You touched on everything that I was looking for there.
Hey everyone, we're going to get right back to the episode. However, I do want to mention that our Teach Better conference is underway and you can start registering, but I might have a little discount code for you. So as you head over to teachbetterconference.com and sign up for the amazing event that we are having November 8th and 9th, make sure you use Podcast Talk as your $50 discount code. Now let's get back to the episode.
You did touch on your Along Came a Leader, so appreciate you touching on that. I know you have another book coming out, I think fairly soon, yes?
Yeah, so I have always done artwork, and on stage I do a 6 foot by 8 foot live drawing, choreographed to music, animated with the computer. It's really cool. It's imagine a mountainscape, and then surprise, it comes to life. Computer animation, people climbing up the mountain, planting a flag, things like that. Really proud of it. Always wanted to do a comic book or an illustrated book for kids. Even when I was a little kid, I knew that was something I wanted to do. And I don't know, about a year or two ago, I got an iPad Pro with a pencil and was drawing digitally and started drawing pictures of my dog, Jedi. And it just hit me. Like I suffer a little bit from anxiety. I have a lot of friends and family that suffer from anxiety. And I've really found that mindfulness and art therapy works really well for kind of relaxing people, getting them ready for the next day. And I penned a book called Unthink Before Bed, and I illustrated it with my dog and a little boy, and about how they're getting ready for the next day. So it's a perfect bedtime story. It's about one night before bed, and what I think people at all ages could do to be more intentional about relaxing and unplugging and getting ready for the day. So I don't know if you or Ray ever have anxious moments when you lay down in bed and you got a million thoughts going through your head. I did my best to capture Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss. The illustrations are a lot of fun. I'd like to say it's coming out really soon, but I've some of the artwork I'm converting from a single page to a full spread. I met with an illustrator. I can't wait to get it out. If only my mom and I buy a copy, I'll be excited.
I'm going to not only buy a copy, but probably read it every night to get myself, because I do have some anxious nights. I deal with a lot of that. So like that's going to really, and my son does as well. So I think that I'm excited about it, man. So
yeah.
So what's the goal? How soon is the goal? Is it like June or is it like August? Like what's the?
Yeah. So we're past goal. We really are. It's like I'm one of those guys that keeps coming up with a great idea. One of the smartest things I did was I created a Facebook group back in January, and I took volunteers off social media. And so 25 people from all over the country stepped forward, even actually all over the world. There are some international attendees within my Facebook group, and it's closed. No one else can get in on it. And I share pieces in the Facebook group, and they give me feedback. And one of them is I got to learn about everybody who's involved. And one guy is a child psychologist out of California. And each person, there's a parent, there's a teacher, there's every walk of life is giving me feedback, not only on the art, but also on the wording and things like that. And I have a very special page at the end of the book dedicated to that 25 people. But the problem with it is I keep coming up with more ideas, right? So I'm just going to have to draw a line in the sand and say no more. But one piece came back. I wanted them to hear it before they read it. I wanted them to hear the rhythm and rhyme to the book before they saw any illustrations. And so immediately they suggested that there has to be an audio component.
I was just going to say, is there going to be an audio component?
Yeah. So I'm not selling it. So actually the last page, a page towards the end of the book will be my dog holding up a QR code. And just by holding your iPhone up to it, it'll take you to a page on kellycroy.com. And so you kind of like the old slide. I don't know if you remember slideshows, but it would always give like a beep when to turn the page. And so that's just a gift. That's just a gift to everybody that they can follow along. So imagine a young child that, wants to hear the book and follow along. They'll be able to have that through their own device. And so there's some other I don't know that's been done before, but it probably has somewhere. But I've hidden a lot of little things, and like all the things I thought would be cool in a children's book. It's been fun. And I'll tell you this, Jeff and Ray, it will not be perfect when I'm done, but I will be incredibly proud from it. And I have learned one thing. I want to do more children's books. Like this was so much fun for me. Like this like my whole life, I think this is what I always knew I wanted to do. And this has been like the most fun for me. So yeah, I'm really happy with it.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it. It's amazing. I feel like I've taken so much already away from your stories, whether it's the books that you've written, which, by the way, I'm picking up all of them after I get off this podcast. I cannot wait for the new one. Or your podcast. I mean, it sounds great. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that you were talking about how you're like a one-man show for your podcast and how you have to, do all the work. And I mean, that is a big task. And I want it on record. I do everything for this podcast. Jeff does nothing. I want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I laughing out loud? I thought I had myself muted. That was,
yeah. On a side note, though, moving more into interviewing you, I would love to hear about. Obviously, I'm going to exclude the children's books because I think we could already hear your passion in that. I'm thrilled that that's not only something you're exploring right now, but will continue to explore. But what is exciting you about education right now? What's going on in the world of education that's really fueling your fire?
Yeah, I can sum it up in one word: culture. I really see school districts and leaders. And when I say leaders, I don't mean just administration. I mean people who, whatever their job in education is, deciding that we really need to focus on the people, the students, the staff, all levels of people within education, and strengthen our culture. So we win the hearts of students, we'll win their minds. We've always talked about, how important rapport is with students, how we need to be child-centered, these kind of thematic topics mixed in with all the other things that we do. I'm really seeing a wave of focus throughout the country of people, not only in education, but in other organizations, people organizations that realized, chasing profit or chasing test scores or things like that, we really need to invest in people. And like today, I worked with another school district on culture. What are their beliefs in education? What are the behaviors that they need to act on because of those beliefs? And if you act on these beliefs, what will the outcomes be? And it was amazing to hear these. It was like they had been waiting for this. They've been waiting for someone to come along and talk to them about what they believed needed to be done in education. And so we're documenting all that and figuring out how can we train people to listen to other people with intention, with no other, not a purpose to comment like, Ray, you share your story and then I share my story. But like, I just listen to you, Ray. I just listen to what you have to say, right? That genuine skill of listening and being good to each other. So that's what really excites me. Are test scores important? Yeah, they are. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to have good test scores. I know other teachers do well. I'm not going to play the game of like, they don't matter and things like that. But nothing is more important than hearing the stories of our students and our staff members. Our educators are growing more frustrated. They're becoming overworked. They're suffering from a lot of anxiety themselves. And it's just great to see some leaders emerging in education who are like, you know what? we invest a lot of money in technology. We invest a lot of money in textbooks. We invest a lot of money in buildings and other things. Let's invest in people. Let's train people on how to work, collaborate, and design with other people. Because your best day in education, I'm going to tell you what it is. It's a cultural experience, right? Like when you have a great experience in education, it's because of a relationship that you had with a family or a student or a colleague. Your worst day in education, you know what that was? Cultural experience. It was a people problem, right? A misunderstanding. Someone felt slighted. Somebody misunderstood what they said. See, when we look down the hallway and we see another educator, we see a student walking down the hallway, it's like that iceberg floating in the water. We see just the tip. We see 1% of 100% of a person. And we make all of our judgments on the 1% that we see. Happens every day. And it's from that, that quick observation that these misconceptions are formed. And so what do we have to do? The answer is simple. You don't really even need to bring anybody in to work on culture. You can start today. It's simple. Here's what you got to do. Work on building relationships with them. Build relationships with students. Build relationships with families. Build relationships with your colleagues. Build relationships with administrators. If we're working hard to get to know everybody's story, you can't be mad at anybody when you know their story. You really can't. You have to start to develop empathy, right? So that's what really excites me. And that, I guess from the Wired Educator and an Apple Distinguished Educator and all that, maybe you're hoping for, something technology focused, but that is probably what I'm most excited about right now. I want to see, I love seeing the relief on people's faces when they're like, wow, somebody's taking the time to care about me and help me. I see administrators really getting to know their staff, their young staff, and teaching them some life skills about investment and, what to take home and grade and what not to take home and grade and things like that. We kind of miss some of the big ones. So that's part of my answer. There's some other curriculum areas that I could focus on as well, but how did I do, Ray?
No, I think it's amazing. It's gold. I mean, it's so good. So good.
Some of the work I like doing, curriculum wise, I am an Apple Distinguished Educator. I'm really proud of that. And, we've had a big focus this last couple of years actually, on the everyone can create curriculum. And so it doesn't matter to me if you're an iPad user or a Chromebook user or whatever your device is. I will say this from an academic and educational standpoint, focus on creation over consumption. Kids, there's this myth of the digital native that, you hand a kid a device, they know what to do. It's not true. Okay. Because you hand my kids a device and they'll be like, okay, how can I play a game? How can I connect with somebody socially? Or how can I watch Netflix? Those are the three things, right? And so educators, we need to figure out how to instruct with these devices and teach kids how to learn with them. They're not digital natives of how to learn with a device. And so I think the short answer for that is simple: create. Teach kids how to use the devices to create. And that's your DOK4. That's your synthesization of learning. That's your rigor. That's your relevance. That's your quad D, right? So get kids to create. So whatever you have, whatever technology you have in your schools, teach the kids how to create in your content area. And so it should be a lot higher creation to a lot lower consumption, you know?
On the Teach Better team, we do a ton of work with web's depth of knowledge. I love that you're focused on, the depth of knowledge at that level 4 of students actually being the creators. It's a huge shift to see that in classrooms.
Yeah. And teachers, as you're listening to this podcast, I'm your permission slip. And here it is. You don't have to grade everything. You really don't, and I was in the ELA classroom, and, so writing for a kid, it should really be like 10 to 1. They should be writing like 10 times to what you could grade per one, right? Because if you're grading and murdering every piece that they're turning in, they don't want to write anymore. So, feedback is good. Peer feedback is best. You don't have to give feedback on everything, but really focus on that creation. Look at things. Everybody should be doing video conferences. Everybody should be making movies. Everybody should be creating podcasts and interviews and doing projects. I think, all the kids, thousands of kids that I've taught over the years, they remember 2 things out of your classroom: how you treated them, that's culture, and the projects that you made in their class, that's creation. That's it. I go to get gas in my car. I hear, "Hey, Mr. Croy, how are you?" My first question is, "How did I treat you?" "Oh man, you were great. You really tried to make a difference in my life. I appreciate that." My next question: "What do you remember from my class?" "I remember that project we did." Right? That's it. Culture and create. That's it. That's where it's at.
So Kelly, you've given a lot of advice already, but my question for you is kind of specifically for a new teacher or a teacher that has been driven to something new, wants to try something new. And so what advice do you give those teachers that are really hungry to be progressive and reach their students like you're kind of painting that beautiful picture of? What advice do they need?
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to that. Like, teaching is really hard. I'm going to be upfront. Teaching is not easy, but like leadership, I believe leadership is a skill that can be taught. I think, and it's something you're constantly working on. You don't like plant a flag and be like, "Yep, I'm now the most awesome leader in the world." Teaching is exactly the same way. And teaching and leadership are almost one and the same, because good leaders are teachers and good teachers are leaders. And so in my book, Along Came a Leader, I really focus on 6 areas. The first one's attitude. If you're a new teacher, you got to have a great attitude. You got to have a great attitude with kids. You can't declare wars over silly little things. And you got to have a great attitude with your colleagues as well. So if there's veteran teachers in your building, you got to reach out to them, make them feel great. Ask them questions like, "Hey, what would you do in this situation?" And but listen carefully, because there are some negative ones out there as well. And you got to politely and with love and with kindness kind of discount the negative comments, but really try to inquire and honor their experience and honor their time in education. But you also really need to collaborate with young, enthusiastic teachers as well. And that's why I think Twitter and other social media forums where people are sharing their ideas and they're sharing their energy is fantastic. I think, we're lifelong learners. I think educators that are lifelong learners, that's the wisdom piece in my book, is really important. You have to commit to always wanting to learn more. And that's what I love about Twitter. I think you learn more off of Twitter and collaborating. Like, Ray, right now, you and Jeff, I want to do a project with you later. And so I think I don't know, but I know it'll benefit someone else, but I'll learn a lot. I have a lot to learn from you, Ray. I have a lot to learn from Jeff as well. I'm going to keep going through my whole list here, but like tenacity to a young educator, like tenacity is that never give up. Like, every day you should be trying to level up yourself and make a difference in the lives of kids every day. Like, even that one kid that's like, really frustrated with you. Just love, 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 never give up. Communication, constantly work on your communication, especially with parents. A lot of people say, "Well, I tried to call home, no one answered, blah, blah, blah." You keep trying. First 30 days of school, you should absolutely contact 30 families, period. Right? Period. And you contact a family every day. and you tell them the great things. Because Ray, if you're one of my students and, like in October, we're going to have a problem, is it going to be easier to address that problem in October if I've already contacted home and told them 3 great things that you did? Yeah. So they're going to be like, oh, that's a guy that really likes Ray. So now he's calling about a little tiny problem. We're going to fix that. Have a grand vision, I think is incredibly important. Have a big, epic vision of what teaching is, and never sell out. Like, never give that up. Like, huge. Like, I want to make a difference. I want my impact. I do. People are like, what's your end game, Kelly? My end game is to make a lasting impact on education globally. I'm never giving that up, ever. And who would ever think that I'd be invited to an international conference on education, which I'm going to next week. And finally, authenticity. This is huge for new teachers, Ray. This is huge. So if you're a new teacher, you probably were born into the world of social media and stuff like that. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, lean into the speaker on this one. You've got to be the same person in the classroom that you are online, that you are when you're with your friends and things like that. You need to be. And if you're not, if that's a challenge to you right now, I need you to think about that. You need to be authentic. You need to be authentic to your kids and be a role model, be a leader. But you can't live 2 lives. You can't be one person somewhere and a different person somebody else. And that's not easy, especially to a young person. And so those are my 6 areas I'd say I would really focus on. But love it, enjoy it. I taught for 28 years. Well, I'm still in it. I go to work every day, always have, like, just loving it. And so love it. That's my best advice.
I love that last piece of advice of love it. You need to love what you do. That's fantastic. Awesome. You were talking about learning constantly and stuff. I'm learning so much tonight. Like, this is awesome right now. I'm super pumped. So now we're going to see how, like, you've been just shelling out some awesome, just gold and nuggets left and right here. But now we're going to put you to a test and see how good you really are.
Oh, so I never tested well. Okay.
The next 6 questions, Kelly, your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less.
That's going to be the hardest part of the night, but I'm ready. Let's do it.
I'm excited for it. Ready? So, all right. What is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
Flipgrid.
What's a book that you're reading right now?
I'm looking right at Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss.
Ooh, that's a good one. Who do we need to follow on Twitter today?
You need to follow Jimmy Casas.
And what's the best YouTube channel or website for educators?
I'm all over the place on YouTube. I usually watch like really stupid stuff on YouTube, so that's not a good one. What was the other choice?
Or just a website. What's a good website for resources and such for teachers?
Website. Gosh, I'm bombing on this one. The Wired Educator would be a great one.
I'll take it. That's a great one. You got another one that's coming to mind?
Yeah. Help me out here. Like the big Edutopia is a huge one.
Edutopia is a great one. That's a good one as well. All right, give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine you think every teacher should get into.
Yeah. If you're not journaling, you're not living life. Journal. Get a journal. Get a nice one. Moleskine journal. Write down magic moments, write down your goals, never write down something you don't want other people to read, because that totally could happen. But journaling is like the fun of life. So journal.
And finally, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I've ever received, and it's the hardest piece of advice for myself to follow, and that's not to take everything so seriously.
That's a good one. Yeah, I didn't do bad, Ray. He did not do bad. The YouTube channel website kind of stumbled him up, but I don't know if he was probably still okay altogether, I think.
Yeah, I think he gets a trophy.
Yeah, he gets a trophy. Okay, well, we're close, so
I'll send you my mailing address.
I'll bring the trophy when we meet up.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, I probably have the most important question of the night, and that just has to do with how our listeners can connect with you. So whether it be Twitter or Instagram or anything in between, would you mind sharing your contact information?
Yeah. So I'm trying to build up my Instagram game. So it's KCROY, K Croy on Instagram. I'd love to have you there. I'd love for you to go to both of my websites, kellycroy.com and wirededucator.com. I think you can email me at kelly@kellycroy.com. I'm on Twitter as Kelly Croy and Wired Educator. Twitter's a great place. I answer emails. I love that. I would love to engage with people. Here's the way I'd really like to your listeners to engage with me. And I haven't gotten a great response from this, so I'm hoping they'll take me up on it. I put a plug in on my Future Focus podcast and my Wired Educator podcast called SpeakPipe, where listeners can record a quick audio question or comment, and it gets sent to my email. And then I could put that into a future episode of the podcast. And so what I'd really love is for someone to listen to one of my great interviews with an educator and then like ask a question like, hey, why did you ask them this? Or what did you think of when they said that? Or, whatever it is that they want. And then I could pull that out and put it in a future episode. I just haven't had any luck with it. So I'm hoping someone takes me up on that. Great question, Ray. Thank you.
Awesome. You guys know you can find everything, all the links, all the resources, everything we talked about in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those really important links for connecting with Kelly and getting the podcast, finding out about his books and everything he's got going on. We have all that over in the show notes over at teachbetter.com, so make sure you head over there. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes, and if you can give us a rating and review, we'd really, really appreciate that. And then I want to challenge you to think of 5 of your colleagues right now who need to hear these amazing stories like Kelly's and share this podcast with them because they need to hear this stuff. Kelly, man, this was awesome to have you on here. This is just a fantastic episode. I'm super excited to listen back through it while we're editing and to get it out to everyone and to continue to just connect with you and get to know you, learn from you, learn together, grow together, and everything like that. Man, we really, really appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with us tonight.
Jeff, Ray, you're both so kind. Thank you for having me on the show. I can't wait to share your podcast out with my listeners. It was really an honor. Thank you.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.